They say it was carved from the wood of a tree that never grew in daylight, that its surface feels cold even when held near flame, that no matter how long you stare at it, you'll never quite be sure which side is meant to face outward. It's just a mask, smooth, featureless, no eye holes, no mouth, just the vague suggestion of a face pressed flat, as if whoever wore it had been erased. It's passed through hands quietly. Collectors, priests, scholars who never appear in photographs again. No museum keeps it. No official record acknowledges it. But it's always out there, changing owners like it's choosing. Those who've touched it say the moment you hold it, the room changes. The air grows heavy, as if something unseen has stepped closer. Some claim it hums. Others say they hear whispering in their own voice. But everyone agrees on one thing. Once you've seen the mask, you begin to feel watched, even when you're alone. The earliest record of it is a monk's journal from the 1400s. He describes a relic made to cover not the face, but the soul. His last entry ends mid-sentence. The page is torn. His body was never found. No one knows where it came from. No one knows what it wants. But the stories are always the same. If you put it on, you might not take it off as yourself. And even if you do, something else might keep wearing your shape. This is the story of the demon behind the mask, and the ones who were foolish enough to look inside. In 17th century Prague, buried beneath the archives of a Jesuit monastery, a parchment was found detailing the disbanding of a heretical sect. It referred to them only as Faciem Inan, the hollow face. Their existence wasn't known to the church through public trial or mass arrest. No, they were uncovered by accident when a fire broke out in the library and revealed a hidden chamber below the floor. Inside that chamber, investigators found no bodies, only charred robes arranged in a circle, melted candle stumps, and at the center, a mask placed on a velvet pedestal, untouched by flame. The walls were covered in drawings etched with bone, faceless silhouettes, spirals leading inward, and a strange symbol that appeared to be an eye, but inverted, as if meant to be seen from the inside. The hollow face cult was never officially recognized by the church, but hidden letters between inquisitors reveal their rituals were focused not on worship, but on invitation. They believed the mask was a conduit, a threshold between flesh and something older than form. Members would fast for days, then sit in complete silence, staring into the mask's blank face until it no longer looked blank, until it watched back. Survivors of similar gatherings, from centuries later, describe the same pattern. Participants begin dreaming of doorways, but never the same kind. Some of stone, some of bone, all opening into darkness. A voice would speak, but it wasn't heard. It was felt, like pressure behind the eyes. One occult researcher, now missing, believed the cult wasn't trying to summon a demon. They were trying to become its reflection. They wore the mask not to hide, but to mirror what waited behind it, to be its anchor, to offer it form, and perhaps in time, to offer it a name. But what name? That's the one thing none of the records ever mention. It was never written, only whispered, and only by those willing to vanish for it. And so the hollow face faded from history. No executions, no graves. Only journals ending too soon, sketches that bleed at the edges, and one detail repeated across centuries. The mask is not cursed. It's listening, and the more people forget about it, the more it remembers. The mask has no eyes, but it sees. This is the phrase found etched beneath a cracked mirror in an abandoned chapel near Warsaw, the kind of place where even the wind refuses to enter. The walls were scorched, the altar shattered. And in the center of the floor, facing upward, was a mirror blackened at the edges. Except for one spot, where a faint imprint of a face had been burned into the glass, smooth, featureless, unmistakably masked. Over the years, similar reports began to surface. Individuals who came into possession of the mask, through auctions, private collections, or inheritance, all began describing strange behavior in their reflections. First, minor things, a blink that didn't match, a delay in movement, subtle smiles that didn't reach their own face. Then it escalated. One woman claimed that when she turned away from the mirror, she still felt her reflection watching. Another said she woke one night to find her own reflection standing by her bedside, staring silently, unmoving, as if waiting to be looked at. Many broke their mirrors after that, but it didn't help. Reflections found new surfaces, dark windows, still water, polished metal. A professor of folklore in Munich attempted to study the phenomena. He created a controlled ritual, place the mask on a bust, stand before a mirror, and stare for exactly 13 minutes. On the 6th test, he reported seeing his own reflection begin to degrade, not like a hallucination, but like rot. His face melted into smoothness. Features vanished. Behind the empty shell, another shape began to emerge. Taller, darker, bending the light around it like heat. He destroyed the mask the next day, or tried to. He set it on fire, shattered it with a hammer, buried it in concrete. But he was found weeks later, dead of apparent shock, staring into a puddle outside his home, eyes wide open, pupils completely black. The reflection he left behind in his bathroom mirror still exists. It's been examined, documented, even photographed. But in every image, his face appears normal, until you blink, until you look again. Then something shifts, just slightly, enough to make your stomach twist. It's as if the mirror never captured him at all, only what had been behind him, and always just behind. There is a difference between wearing a mask and becoming it. Most who encounter the artifact speak of fear, of visions, whispers, shifting reflections. But a smaller group, never more than 1 or 2 per century, experience something far more disturbing. A calm, almost reverent compulsion. They don't fear the mask, they crave it. These are the ones who perform the ritual. No official version of the ritual exists. It's never written down. It's passed through dreams, always the same sequence. A candle-lit room, a bowl of water darkened with ash, complete silence, and the mask laid gently in the center of a drawn circle. Not a protective circle, a welcoming one. The participant must sit before it for 13 hours. No speaking, no movement, no thought. The longer they sit, the more their senses shift. Sight narrows, sounds distort. Memories begin to slip, not vanish, but become distant, like stories they once heard about someone else. Family names, favorite places, even their own voice starts to feel borrowed. If they make it to the end, they put the mask on, and that's when the real transformation begins. Eyewitnesses, what few exist, describe a physical stillness that overtakes them, as if the body is present, but the person inside is not. Some weep, some laugh, some remain silent for days. But eventually, a new personality emerges, not a possession, something stranger. The person speaks with the same voice, but their mannerisms change, too fluid, too measured. Their eyes don't track like human eyes should. They remember fragments, not from their own lives, but from others. A stone hallway lit with red flame, a book whose pages shift when you look at them, a cold wind beneath a world with no sky. They speak of places no one has ever seen, yet always, they end their stories with the same sentence. The mask fit perfectly. After the ritual, these individuals are never quite the same. Some go into isolation, Others disappear entirely. A few become obsessed with creating masks of their own, none of which ever capture the original's silence. But those close to them report a strange effect. After prolonged contact, they too begin to forget things, subtle things, where they left their keys, the names of colors. Their own reflections feel less familiar. One researcher theorized that the mask is not a cursed object, but a mirror shard of something ancient, and the ritual simply tunes the wearer to its frequency. Once attuned, the body becomes a vessel, not for a demon in the traditional sense, but for something that does not recognize individuality. It simply wears you, like you wore it. And then, slowly, it settles in. You won't feel it happen. You'll just wake up one day and realize you haven't blinked in hours. No one knows who carved the mask. No records tell us where it was first worn, but it keeps appearing. In sealed attics, beneath burned floorboards, inside boxes that were never meant to be opened. And every time, something goes missing. A memory, a voice, a face. The stories don't change. The mask doesn't rot. And those who stare too long into the space where eyes should be always describe the same feeling. Not fear, but recognition. As if something behind the mask already knows you. Already knows what you've lost, what you've hidden. They say it doesn't steal you all at once. It waits, watches. It becomes your stillness, your silence, your reflection. And then, one day, it doesn't need to hide behind the mask anymore, because it has you. So here's a question no one's ever answered. If you saw your reflection blink, and you didn't, what would you do? Tell me in the comments below. I want to know how you would face what's behind the mask. And if this story stayed with you, if it made you look twice at your own reflection, like this video, subscribe for more, and step deeper into the forbidden with us. He's still watching. And now, so are you.